Hey friends, it's Walter Zemrock with the Cat Scrappiness Inspiration Team, and today I'm coming to you with some mixed media fun. I have this project that is going to make such a great Halloween decoration, or for those of you that kind of just like the spooky gothic decor, it could be a year-round decoration. So here's what we're going to be using. We're starting off with this really cute, but still spooky voodoo doll stamp from Cat Scrappiness called Stick It To Me. Be using this guy. Going to be using this cobweb piece of paper from the Creepy and Kooky paper pad set. Going to be using a piece of vellum, a cotton ball, a black button that I just have in a stash of buttons, this Shadowbox that I bought at one of the, big chain crafting stores, really inexpensive. It's the perfect size for this project. There is a hanger on the back. There's also this piece of twine on the back for hanging. We're going to be using it vertically, not horizontally, so I'm going to cut that piece of twine off because it can stand on its own. And we're going to be using a piece of burlap paper that I purchased a set of this on Amazon, pretty inexpensive, but it's burlap fabric on the front and back, and it has a thin plastic sheet in the middle of it that you really can't see. So we'll be using some of this as well. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to get started with the case that's going to hold the voodoo doll. I went ahead and, as I'd mentioned previously, I cut the twine off, and then I just used some needle nose pliers to get those staples that were holding it in out of there. No one's going to see the back. I mean, it's scratched a little bit, but nothing to worry about or that we can't cover up. We're just going to be using the front for the display of the decoration. So the first thing I would like to do is I want to go ahead and get some ink on there to stain the wood and just to give it some color and some aging, because my thought on this is the story behind this mixed media project is this is a cursed voodoo doll that's been placed in a box that so that no one uses it or touches it. So I want to make it look a little old and funky, so we're going to do that with some ink. So let's start with that first. So to color the shadow box, you can use, basically any ink color you'd like. If you'd like to use black, you could use black. That's not a problem. I want to add just some brown in for some stain, so I'm going to use, I happen to have some re-inker from Altenew, Sicilian Amber that I really like, but if you have any of the Tim Holtz, like Vintage Photo or Walnut Stain or like anything like that can be used. You can just do direct contact via ink pad as well if that's something you'd like to do. I'm just going to use this and grab a paintbrush, and we're just going to brush a coat of this on, like I said, just to get some age and some stain onto there. And the beauty of this is there's no right or wrong way to be doing this. You can go as light or as dark as you want. And since I'm going for like an aged type of look, I don't want it to be uniform necessarily. I want it to look a little messy. So this here, I think, is really, really cool because it just adds to the, to kind of like the mystery and the intrigue of the story of this voodoo doll. So just take your brush and make sure you do go with the grain of the wood, just to make sure that it looks nice and it matches up. And you can easily tell what the grain of the wood is because it's the way it flows if you're not familiar with that. And just want to get that spread over. When we're done with this, we can put a coat of Mod Podge on to help with sealing it. We don't have to by any mean. That's just an option that we have. You know, if this is going to be indoors and it won't be outside, which I think would likely be the case, you really don't have to worry about the Mod Podge, and that's something that you can skip. There's really no need. The only time you want to really make sure that you seal it is if you're putting it outside. There's a chance it could get some rain or get wet or something, and you don't want it to. You don't want to ruin it. So let's do a little bit more here. And you can also go ahead and explore and do some other shades. And I may do that when I'm done. Just put like another shade over to try to, like, you know, blend in. So if you're using reinkers from a set that goes together like I am, you know that all of these inks will work together. So you don't have to worry about goofing up, if you will, or making a mistake. Although I always like to say there really aren't any mistakes when you're crafting. Sometimes there's an accident, a happy accident, hopefully. But it's usually nothing that you can't fix. You know, if you thought something looked really, really bad and you're using brown, go ahead and put black over it, and that would just cover it up. Go ahead and take some acrylic paint and paint over it. That's another option that you have with a project like this, is to go ahead and use acrylic paint. If you want it a painted look. I wanted a more natural, just wooden box look, so I chose this. I'm going to do the front sides and the back and the inside, and come back and show you how it looks. Okay, so our box is painted. Look at how gorgeous that is. That just looks so good. What you want to do is, once you're done painting, I would take a rag and just wipe it down, which will help get off any excess ink. As you can see, some got on my fingers. No big deal, it'll wash off. Also, you can speed up the drying process by using your heat tool on low. I would not recommend high, but on low, or a hair dryer, and just adding some some hot air to go ahead and speeding up that drying. Did not paint that back panel because paper's going to go there, so there was no need to. And that's why if you had some bleeding, not a big deal, because you're going to cover it up. So with that said, what we can now do is measure and cut our cobweb paper that we're going to use. And so the size of this box is 6 inches by 4 inches. Now, that's the entire size of the box, but you have this little lip here that is around all the edges, and that little lip is just a little less than ½ an inch. So I'm going to grab my paper trimmer, and for the length, we know that there's really only a little that has to come off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that at, let's do, we'll start with 1/4 off of that. And then we'll just size it down from there. So still need to go more than that. And I got a little bit of ink on the paper, but that's not a big deal because I'm actually going to be inking that paper anyways. I want to get some grunge on there. Again, for the purpose of making it look older. So we're not quite there yet. Probably, let's go down to 5 1/4 and see how that looks. Come on, you stick down there. There we go, 5 1/4 will work. And so that means if that was at 4, I think we will go and start with 3.5, but I think we have to go to 3.25. But I'd rather do another cut than have it be off. Yep, so let's do another little bit off. Try that at about 3.25. Yep, and that, no, actually, you know what? I need to probably come off just a little bit more, just a tad, so that it's not so tight and getting in there. So let's go down a little bit on the height and just a tad on the width. And let's give that a try. Yep, that's going to go right in. That's going to be perfect. Okay, so we have that all set. As I mentioned, I want to kind of age it up a bit. So I'm going to put that scrap aside to use for another project. And so I'm going to grab my brown blending brush. And there's probably still some ink on here already, so I'm just going to try that first. And all I'm going for here is just to get some of those like aging spots on there. Darken it up a bit. Doesn't have to be, you know, perfect or anything, just, you know, what I refer to as grunge, just those aging marks, makes it look older. And that's exactly what we're getting there. You can spray it if you have some spray, that would be fine. But there, just to give it a little bit of an older look, so it's not just stark white. Perfect. So in order to get that into there, I'm going to use a combination of double-sided adhesive tape and some craft glue. And I like to use both to kind of make sure to get it to stick. Kind of just gives it that extra security of making sure that it'll stay stuck down there with the glue there in addition to the tape. So I'll go ahead and grab my bottle of craft glue. And I'm just going to run some of that in here. And the good thing too is that with the glue, it will give you a little bit of wiggle room with that tape initially, because it gives where the tape kind of bonds instantly, the glue gives it that little bit of wiggle room. And you don't need a ton of glue by any means. You just need enough to ensure that it'll help it stick down there. I'm happy with that amount. And it's as easy as just grabbing our paper, putting it in there, and pressing it down. Easy peasy. We now have the background of the Shadowbox done. And if you want to add additional grunge or do anything kind of fun at this point, you certainly can. Also, running the brush over like this will certainly help it apply some pressure and kind of stick it down there. Okay. So I think we are ready to move on to stamping out our little friend and getting him ready. So that is what we are going to do next. So I know I won't need the full sheet of this paper. So I'm just going to start by cutting it in half at 5.5 so that I have a half-size panel so I don't waste any of it. It goes through your trimmer really nicely. And then I am going to cut it down again like I'm as if I'm creating an A2 size panel. Just to, that might be enough for me to work with, but if not, I know I can cut off another piece. I just don't want to waste a lot of it. So we can put our paper trimmer away. And this stamps pretty well. I've used it in other projects and I've been happy with the results. And we only have to stamp this guy the one time, but I am then also going to cut out a back for him as well, and glue it together just to kind of make it look a little more full than just a single-sided type of figure. Yeah, I'll be able to cut the other side out there, so that'll be great. So I'm going to grab my stamper and, oh, you know what? Before I stamp that, I think I want to add some grunge onto this, some aging, just to make him look like he's, you know, been around for a while. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to grab some antique linen and tea dye from Tim Holtz and just rub some on there randomly. Doesn't have to be perfect, just randomly rub it just to get some aging on there. And I like to, these are my two favorite inks actually for adding, you know, grunge, if you will, and aging, because they just, they do the trick. I mean, it's just, you can use any brown ink really, but for me, these are the best. They never let me down. So let's now go ahead and stamp him onto there. And we're not going to be doing any other coloring, so I would recommend a black pigment ink. You don't have to worry about it running because we're not doing any other coloring. So I'm going to grab my VersaFine Clair. And we might have to stamp him a couple of times to get an image that we like, but, you know, whatever. It's easy enough. So really load your stamp up with the ink. Gonna grab my pressing tool and really give it a good press down there. If you don't have this kind of paper, there are embossing folders that mimic, or stencils that mimic, and I know Cat Scrappiness has a burlap type of stencil that you could just stencil it onto paper and then stamp on top of that. Nothing wrong with that. You may not want this kind of an effect at all, and maybe on yours you want to color him different colors, so you're going to stamp him on paper. You know, this is how my design is, but you can do whatever you'd like. Got a really nice stamp there, but I definitely want to darken it. Normally, I would maybe suggest trying to use embossing inks and some black embossing powder, but I don't know if the plastic in the center of this particular paper is the kind that you can heat up, so I'm not going to do that. Of course, with the embossing powder, black embossing powder, you would get a really nice image, but I think we're going to be okay with this guy just with stamping him. And I just want to apply a lot of pressure each time to get as much of that ink down there. And he's looking great. I am definitely going to go again. A little bit, and then come in with my tool to press it in. So I had mentioned we'd end up doing this a few times. This is our third. We may end up going another. We'll see. Yeah, that looks really good, but I do want to go, I think, one more time. Use your judgment in regards to how dark you want it. You know, I definitely want him to be able to be seen because he is so fun. And even though he's cute, he is a little creepy. I mean, he gets stuck with pins after all, so. There, let's give that a look. That's good. I think he looks great. Yep, I like him. And I am also then going to, when I fussy cut him out, put him over on this side and cut around as well so that he has a back to him. Not that you're going to see the image or anything like that, because his back will be up against the wall, but just to make sure that it's, you know, not too see-through or anything. So I'm going to clean up this stamp, and we'll move on after that. Okay, so now we can fussy cut this guy out. And it's really not that difficult. He, the good news is he has some small, like, you know, spaces like around the pins, but that's really the hardest, most difficult areas. And I'll let you in on a secret. I'm going to use actual pins to make this look even more realistic. So I'm going to cut through the stamped pins because I really don't need them, since I'm going to be gluing some pins to him, which I think is kind of a really fun idea. So we're gonna go or cut through those pins. Also, don't worry if you cut into the black line or cut too close, because I'm going to take a black alcohol marker and run it around the edges once I have him completely fussy cut out, including his other side, just to, you know, just to reinforce that dark outline. I should have let him dry a little bit, but, you know, I'm only touching certain areas, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to really lose any ink. And if you happen to want to darken up some of the black, my tip for that is if you don't have any fine detail black markers, highly recommend them. And you can just use one to go ahead and darken up as you see fit. And I am going to get that space over here in between his two legs and get that cut out. Again, because I want to give it, you know, almost realistic doll look. So there we go. Just snip that little bit of fabric that's there. There we go. That's all set. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of double-sided tape and some glue and stick him down onto another piece of this and then cut him out. It's just to make it a little sturdier. And, you know, for dimension, you're not going to see a ton of him because he'll be in that case. But that said, you know, you don't want something to look, you know, I'm not going for the flat Stanley look necessarily, so. Yeah, we're just going to go around the outside edges. Get some glue on there. Put a little over the tape as well. And let's get him stuck down over here. There we go. He's looking good. I'm pretty happy with this. So now I'm going to go ahead and again, just cut around. Great thing is we're not worried about cutting out those pin shapes. And I think that the addition of the actual stick pins is kind of fun. It just adds another dimension of both whimsy and kind of eeriness to this. Because again, it's Halloween. It's all about the whimsy and the tricks, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And then I had mentioned that I'll be using a black button. I'm going to glue a black button right over the stamp of the button there. Again, just to kind of give it a more realistic doll type of look. Pull that in back and cut. There we go. So there he is. And do you see what I mean by he just has a little bit more dimension than just that one single layer. And then what I'm going to do to enhance it even more is when I put him into the case, I'm going to use double-sided adhesive foam tape to go ahead and make the dimension even more. So I had mentioned about running a black marker around the edge. I'm going to do that next. And that just reinforces where those stamped lines are. And if, there's any fraying of that material, great, because, fraying is natural on any kind of fabric like this that's older. So I just think, once again, that adds to the fun and the realness and adds dimension to the doll. Okay, so that's done. I'm now going to grab my black button. And the fun thing is you can even line up the holes with the stamped holes there. But in order to get this on, I'm just going to put glue around, and I'm going to make sure that, you don't need a ton because you don't want it necessarily oozing out the sides. Put enough, and then you can just lower that down and go right over that stamp die. Line up those dots, and you have a perfect button eye. I think it could be fun too to color that heart red, just to add some, a little something extra to it. So I'm going to grab a darker red marker. Let's see. Here we go. I'm going to use one called Old Red, which isn't a really bright, and just color in that heart. And our friend here is almost ready to be put into the shadow box. But before I do want to grab a fine detail black marker, and I just want to trace over a few things just to make sure that I'm happy with the overall look. And I am, for the most part. I mean, the ink really did a great job. But I'm just going to come around and just fill some of that in, just to make sure that I'm happy with that. There. Perfect. Nice and easy. Now I'm going to grab my crafting stick pins, and I I do have a set of them because these pens come in so handy for various projects. They really do. What I love to do is if I'm sticking a paper cutout down into foam, I will glue the paper, the pen to the paper. So then that way when I stick it down into the foam to have it stand up, it helps support it. So that's a lot of fun. For these pens, I don't even think we have to glue. I'm just gonna stick them through kind of where that stamping was. And I'm going to use probably a combination of black heads of the pens and maybe some white ones. Just don't stick yourself. Oh, I moved my eye, unfortunately. So I'm going to get some more glue on there. No, actually, you know what I think is an even better idea? I'm going to use glue. Do you talk to yourself like this as you craft? I hope so. I try to tell myself that it's pretty normal. You gotta have a sense of humor. I think I might have been a little too stingy with the glue initially. Let's get that glue to stay down there. I want to line that so that those are straight. Of course, if you don't want the holes to line up, you don't have to do that. It's really whatever you want. And you don't have to push the pins all the way through. You can have them sticking out at various lengths if you want. I just think it's such a fun effect to have the pins, actual pins, rather than the stamped ones. One. Put that one through. Be careful not to pop my eye off again. There we go. All right, I think I got all the pins. You could certainly add more if you'd like to, and actually I think I will. I think I'm gonna add one more and just have it kind of coming through this way. Kind of going under that heart. And for that, I want to make sure it's not as long as his leg. There we go. That is so cute. That really is. Okay, so he's ready. I think he looks fantastic. He's going to fit in there really well. But before I get him in there, I had mentioned a cotton ball, and I think the cotton will add just a fun little effect down on the bottom, like the base of the of where he's going to be in here. So you can skip this if you don't want to include it. I just think it's fun. It can be cobwebs, it can be whatever you want it to be. And I have used cotton balls on projects for cobwebs before. I just think it's a lot of fun. So before I stick that down, I definitely, you guessed it, want to make it look a little old. So I'm just going to go directly to, I'm going to grab a rag. Put the cotton on the rag, and I'm just going to take this directly to it and just stamp down. I might have to go a little darker than this one. I don't want it terribly dark, but I'd like it darkened a bit. Yeah, I think the tea dye is going to be the one that'll give me some better coverage there. Yeah. There. Doesn't have to be a ton, just a little. And with that, get rid of the rag. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that down in there. And there's going to be a touch I'm going to add that is going to be so fun, that we'll be getting to in just a moment. I think you're really going to get a kick out of it. It's going to be our sentiment, if you will. And, you know, this stamp comes with such a great sentiment. No time to talk. There's spooky shit to do. If I was doing a card, I would certainly use that sentiment. But since I'm doing a decoration and I have an idea in mind on how to make this a little creepy, I'm going to go with my idea. And you don't need a ton of glue because the cotton will adhere to it, number one. And number two, there's going to be a cover over the front of this. That's what the acetate is for, to make it look like a glass cover. And so that will keep the cotton from falling out. But now we're just, I'm gonna grab a gesso container there just to angle it so you can see that I'm just gonna now press that down onto the glue and create that little base there. Again, cobwebs or just stuffing or whatever. Maybe it's stuffing he's torn out. Whatever your story takes you. Now, I'm going to grab some foam tape. And I'm probably going to put a couple of pieces of this on. I just want to make sure that you can't see it through the front, and you can't. So that's good. Because I really want to give it some depth. So there's one piece. I'm definitely going to go with at least 3 layers, maybe more. Piece is a little short, so I'm going to stick that back on my roll and use it later. Yeah, I think maybe I will do a 4th. Maybe I will. And it can be a little shorter piece. Yeah, I think that's good. But if you want to adhere them directly to the paper, you could certainly do that. There. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to move that back out of the way and decide where I want him placed. Do I want him standing against it? Yeah, pretty close to it. And then I don't want them to be lopsided, so I definitely want them to be kind of straight. And then just press that down. Careful not to move the eye. I think what I'm going to do to really make sure that that button is secured on there is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right in there, and that's going to dry. Ooh, actually, I just had another idea. Since I'm filling that up with glue. Yeah. You know, sometimes as you're crafting, ideas come to you. And I know exactly what I'm going to do to add yet another little impact onto that guy. Trying to get my pin back in my bottle. There we go. I am going to grab some little crystals and put little crystals over just to add a little bit of a shimmer to that. I do have some black ones. I could do do I want to do black or do I want to do that color? You know what? I think I'm going to do black since it's Halloween. Let me get those black crystals out. Of course, they're never where you think you're going to find them. There we go. And even though they're black, they're still going to give off that, that little shine. So let me grab 4 of those. There we go. And I'm going to just put some more glue there because I want to make sure there's enough that's going to hold that crystal in place, while also helping to hold that eye in place. And the great thing is you're not going to see the glue because those crystals will be there. So, and I say black, they're actually, they are dark, almost have a little bit of a silvery sheen to them. I think that'll work really well. So let's get 1, 2, 3, and 4 in place. That looks really cool. I like that. He looks great. Kat did an amazing job with this particular stamp. I just love it. Okay, so he's in the case. Put my pins away so they don't open. Put those crystals away. Now we're going to cut down our acetate for that front kind of glass on the cover to size. And we knew from measuring it earlier that it's 4 by 6. So I'm going to get that cut down. Oh, it was already at 6. Jeez, wake up, Walter. And 4. There we go. So that should fit perfectly over. And nope, it needs to be cut just a hair. I think maybe a 1/4 inch on each side. So I'm going to come down to 1/4 off there and 1/4 off here. I think that's going to do the trick. It does. That is good. And that's going to give that look of glass. So we have that cut. Now, I had mentioned to you a sentiment, and it's a fun one. Now, I am going to use one of these old-fashioned label makers to create a label to put onto the glass, just because I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And what I'm going to have it say is, do not open. Okay. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can handwrite it. If you like your handwriting, you can type up a label on a laptop or on a tablet or on your phone even, and go ahead and print it out. But I love the kind of retro vintage feel of these types of labels. And again, I just think it adds a fun effect there. So before we glue this all down, I want to decide on where to, a little something on the acetate, where to put it. And I think I'm going to have it up at the top. So, yep, so I know anywhere around here, we'll move it. Because what I want to do is, when I put that down there, I want to also use some glue. I'm sure that the adhesive on there on the back of this is fine, but I want to add some glue just to make sure that it doesn't fall off. So I'm just going to use craft glue, but you could also use super glue if you'd like. Any glue, just to make sure that it has an extra added measure of stickiness. Now, I want it to be straight, so I'm going to line up the acetate on my grid here. And come in and put that and align that onto a line as well, going kind of centered. That looks pretty centered to me. Maybe move it over just a scooch and then stick it down. Before I put down the acetate, I'm going to take a clean rag and just go over the back of it to make sure there's nothing sticking there and to try to eliminate fingerprints. Going to do the same to the front. And we are simply going to go ahead and glue this down. And yeah, you will see a little bit of a glue mark, probably as it dries. It's not going to dry 100% clear, but we'll try to get it as good as we can. And so I'm going to run that glue right along the edge there. Just to make it as uniform as possible. And then there's going to be one more step we're going to do to really add additional detail to this. There we go. I'm going to start down the bottom. Again, the good thing is by using craft glue, you have some wiggle room. And now is the time to really press that down and get it stuck down with that glue so that it will blend in with the ink that's there. And you won't necessarily see like a big glue line. There. Now I'm going to go back to a dirty rag. Dirty in that it's used, and I don't mind getting some excess glue and then also rubbing along here in case any glue got on there. There. How fun is that? our haunted little voodoo doll. Now, to make it look a little bit more, I don't want to say realistic, but certainly like there's something else holding it down, I'm going to take some of these crystals, larger crystals that I have, that actually look more like the size of a screw. There's a method to my madness. That guy kind of slid over a bit there, so I'm just going to fix him. And press that down. There we go. So I'm going to put these in the corner to make it look like that glass is actually like being held down. But I don't like that it's so glittery and shiny. So there's a way I can change that and cover that up. And, you know, you might come up with some ideas to make this even more fun. You know, if you have any like fake plastic chains, you could wrap a plastic chain around it, trying to make it look like it shouldn't be opened. And, you know, I mean, you can come up with a whole story here. I'm going to do those. And I think I'm going to do some about halfway down on the sides as well, just to make it look like it's riveted on there. Try to get those at the same height as best as possible. There. Now, for our final step, I'm going to take a silver metallic marker. Before I do that, I'm going to put the pen back in my glue gun so it doesn't dry up there. And I'm just going to take an end. I'm going to take the rounded end, and I'm just going to tap it around there, trying not to hit the acetate, but if you do, you can hurry up and try to wipe it off, just to make it look more like a screw. If you don't have a marker like this, and you have some gilding wax would work and do the job. Just gray acrylic paint. You could do gold instead of silver. I happen to like the silver to make it look like a screw, but you know, whatever color you'd like. I also think that if you have like a gray gel pen, that could probably work on this too. I've never tried the gel pen, but I wouldn't be surprised. That looks great. And as you see, they're not really glittery, and they look like little rivets. And our friend is done. Isn't this a fantastic Halloween decoration? Oh, our do not open is coming up a bit, so let me close that. Just going to put a slight amount of pressure there and hold that there to get that glue to dry. That's so fun. It really is. It's cute, it's whimsical, but it's also a little creepy. And once all this is done, now is when you could really go in with some additional color if you want to like color up the, that is sticking up again. Okay, so what I'm going to do about that is I'm going to take something lighter to place on it, but not have that acetate cave in, and have that, keep that in place to dry, but you can still see the box. It's fantastic. If you think of other things you want to put in there with it, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I'm pretty happy with this guy, and I hope that you enjoy him. Hope you enjoyed spending this time here with me today, and until next time, be well.